Eternal loop, forever, now, yesterday, the future, all eating, all consuming, all knowing, all giving, all working, forevermore.
You are listening to the Soul Monk Show, episode 16. And I tried to record an episode on 420, filled with all these factoids about the drug war and arrest, and the history behind our drug war. And honestly, it ruined my day. I don't know. It seems like as I get older, I'm more sensitive than I've ever been in a lot of ways. And maybe that's what makes me a good artist, having some kind of intuitive feeling, innate understanding of suffering going on behind all the abstractions that we're just kind of throwing up, because politics is such a loose stage show for things that are actually happening with this infrastructure that we have. And it could easily be better, but there's always like some kind of weird abstraction or something put in place to where things can't quite work very well, There's always something in the way, but it's built that way. It's built to make it look very hard to help people, but very easy to help corporations. Last night, Biden did his first address to Congress, and some of it was all right, but I mean, it's just strange to live under this weird geriatric thing we got going on. We're like the oldest person in the room is somehow supposed to be the smartest, or the one we're supposed to trust, or I guess maybe they've been playing the game the longest, so we must trust them, But honestly, anyone who's been in the game that long, it's hard to trust them. Now Bernie, on the other hand, because he's hated by the system, hated by the binary political spectrum, kind of a thorn in everyone's side, I feel like I can trust him, but I don't know. I think maybe it's an Alabama thing. Not to trust a rich old white man. Those are some kind of like the most evil dudes in Alabama. They still remember the old ways, But I was just listening to it, and it's hard. It's hard to listen to it because they get updated on all the coded language that kind of comes through our lexicon every couple of years. Like stuff comes into our culture or whatever, and we find different ways to kind of like express ourselves, and all those words get eaten up and used against us, So when you're listening to somebody, it's almost like if the words are too sweet, then something's up. But at least in that position, and these vertical relationships, like top down, I'm the president, here's all these nice words that you like and that you're familiar with. Let me describe things that I want to do with these nice words that you're familiar with. Let me appeal to some innate nature in you that you can't deny, so therefore you can't deny me. It seems like a lot of political work is trying to get people in some kind of psychological ultimatum. And every 4 years, every 2 years, every week, every cultural issue, every whatever it is, some kind of psychological ultimatum where you need to choose what part of the binary you support. But the whole set, the whole premise, the whole how to catalog our intent and our policies and all this stuff, it's stupid. We're a nation who's replaced religion with consumerism and wealth and fame worship. We believe in a class that deserves the right to do whatever they want because we can enter that class someday. We literally worship people just because they have lots of stuff. And the only way you get lots of stuff is if you have a long line of people who are getting hoodooed out a little bit of stuff. That's how that happens. Wealth doesn't come from nowhere, and people don't do something more special in a minute to earn, a couple $1 billion in a year, It's not like their minutes are longer. It's not like their hours are better. And it's definitely not like they're smarter.
And now, the Biden address.
If half the factoids about the vaccination are true in Biden's address tonight, it makes a hell of a case for universal health care. When we care, we can give 200 million vaccinations in a few months. 90% of Americans live within 5 miles of a vaccination spot. We could easily make medical necessities and health screenings and tests this easily accessible. It's hard to make the superstructure care about the laborers who make the machine. They're constantly trying to legislate some kind of middleman corporate class that gets a slice of every American necessity, from healthcare to utilities, food, seeds, and even now private companies are trying to buy the rights to water sources. If we don't act, we could become a barbaric generation subjugated by nostalgia and blind consumption in this late capitalist death cult. They'll eventually hoodoo us out of the air we breathe, and we can't say it's not affordable. Trillions is lost every year in corporate taxation. We waste trillions on machines of war that are both failures and unnecessary. We have tank graveyards where freshly made tanks go to rest because of contracts and no necessity for it on a battlefield. And private companies burn their tax dollars to build outdated tools of war that, for a war that'll never come. We spent trillions on planes that can't even fly in the rain, and then ordered more. We've positioned every resource on Earth for private short-term earnings and then used tax dollars to clean up the poison of unethical extraction. And the shit goes on and on. Stupid neocon and neoliberal policies kill us, poison us, make our lives harder in every measurable way, and we pay for it twice through tax dollars. We pay for the symptoms, and we pay for the loss, and the topical solutions. We pay for the research and development for technology and hand it over to private companies to make hundreds of billions, which then is funneled back into politicians who legislate more corporate power for the people who pay them. It's cyclical, and we can't focus on it because they turn us by our triggers. Cultural war under a binary sky. No one knows where they are because the Western political lexicon is based on pay-gated, coded language that postures through misnomer buzzwords that are barked over and over again through different channels of media. Then the binary flavor is pending. Folks feel sick when they hear the words used in the political lexicon because you're supposed to feel that way. The media trains labor to have no interest in their own subjugation. And it could be much easier if Americans could address power and class. No one could speak to material reality, though, People feel power is the invisible hand. It's rude to speak of material ghosts and a spiritual illusion. Our economy is based on endless consumption. The American power class realized you can't have manufacturing in the same place as blind consumption in the 90s. Too many destabilized cultures being used by the superstructure in the close proximity could result in solidarity. So it's easier to alienate different populations across the global market. To blindly consume the flesh knobs need a shelf that refills itself every night. They don't need to know where it came from. They don't need to know where the trash goes. They don't know how to pronounce the chemicals inside. It's an externality of the subjugation of two populations, a replacement of freedom on both behalf. A small monetary lifeline to one is a consumable distraction to the other. Wage slavery and healthy cheap food, no disposable income, predatory loan markets, service and poverty, labor and lack of security. The harder the job, the less the benefits. All a reality in the United States. For some reason in capitalism, all the answers to problems are focused on treating symptoms, a long-terminal relationship with the middleman corporate class who subsidize their costs and their losses and keep more and more of their profits, using the machinations of the superstructure to ensure their own timeless cyclical power. It could be so much easier. Our collective labor and consumption builds the wealth and equity of a class of Americans who live on a frictionless plane of mass extraction and macro exploitation. We simply have to organize and demand our infrastructure be used to create a better society. Our culture could be more than a predatory market, where all citizens are consumer lab rats, mined of their data for corporate profiteering and placed in pay-gated constructs where their basic human needs keep them running on an immobile wheel for local capital. We could become healthier and more equitable if we traded in the illusion for the keys to our superstructure. It's not about a story you tell yourself. It's about this material infrastructure and what it's actually used for. It could be way different if we had engagement in education and all this other stuff. It's just folks are given an illusion instead of freedom, and they confuse the illusion for the freedom. They think having a Walmart open 24/7 where they can go buy stuff is freedom. They think buying seasonal clothes is freedom. They think their favorite movie from when they were a child being remade and re-released and remastered 47th edition with the gold cover is freedom. They think the shoes that they wear that is made by children is freedom. They think the smartphone in their hand, whose minerals was mined by slaves, is freedom. That's what they think freedom is. Everybody sorely are lacking in the comprehension in Western culture. And it's because we're all addicted to buying, consuming. New Amazon box at the door every day, forever, till you die. But guess what? You don't die. You never die. That's the best part about consumption, is that you never have to think about the end of anything. Endlessly consume. Consume, consume, consume. Never think about the end of anything. Never think about where the trash goes. Never think about where it comes from. Never think about who makes it. Never think about the packaging. Never think about the plastic made to create the endless products, the endless trash, waves as high as the sky, wider than the horizon, waves of trash, stuff for us to buy and distract. Endless forever, always. United States, freedom, baby. But as you can tell, I'm a very sensitive person, so, I don't know, my brain just latches onto something and just kind of winds it up and it takes it apart, puts it back together. What is this thing? Why is it working? What is it made for? What am I supposed to do with it? I'm that way about politics. I'm that way about music. I'm that way about art. That way about reading, history. I'm a big emotional sponge. Sometimes a dum-dum. Sometimes I can be clever. But watching politicians speak, watching Biden's address, almost understanding what's happening and what's being said and the numbers being thrown around for programs, and knowing that half of it's just going to go to this like middleman corporate class. They're just going to find ways to cut their friends' checks. I mean, that's what all of it is, over and over again. They try to keep people out of the streets and give them little misnomers and policies that sound like it's doing something, and it's really just to bat down the divergent momentum building up on each issue. It's like something starts happening, people start talking about stuff, it's like, oh shit, we don't want solidarity in the working class, we don't want poor people talking to each other, we don't want black and white talking to each other, we want to keep everybody separate so they don't discuss power, so they don't discuss our vertical relationships, how economic and class mobility is impossible, and you can't discuss class in America either, so you can't talk about it, and you can't move. You stay where you're born, and all you got is Walmart. But Walmart has lots of products filled with sugar, and Walmart has cheap clothes, and once a year you can buy a television for like $2. Lots of inanimate distractions, consumable distractions everywhere. It can all be so different. Well, I'm gonna let you guys go. The Biden address to Congress bummed me out, much like the 420 special that I tried and failed to record because I got too bummed out. I don't know what to say. If you're not paying attention, probably a little easier to be not bummed. I know that's double negative, so let me reframe that. If you're paying attention, it's hard to escape the eternal bummer of endless consumption and mass extraction of surplus value of human livestock in America, in America, in America, in America, in America, in America, in America.